Alright students, so we're going to here and we're going to finish this notes with a few more proofs. We're right here, right now, here on planet Earth, and we're about to have fun. Get it? Because this proof, the angles spell out have fun. Just a minor adjustment. I'm going to delete this M's. Let's change it to the angles are congruent. So that angle is congruent to that angle. HEV is congruent to FUN. Furthermore, it's telling me EH is the bisector of angle DEA. So that means that both smaller angles will be congruent, because a bisector makes two congruent angles. Alright, so filling out this proof we have given. Alright, and then the definition of bisector, remember we have that buzzword right there. It's going to make HEV congruent to HEA. Alright, so HEV is congruent to HEA, definition of bisector. Alright, now notice how HEV is congruent to HEA, HEV is congruent to FUN, so it's congruent to the same thing, so they must be congruent to each other by transitive. And that's that proof right there. We'll put a smiley face. Alright, this proof spells Megan. So if you're Megan, I guess this proof is dedicated to you. MG is the bisector of EMA. So what's this saying? It's saying that MG, oops, struggling to zoom in, excuse me. MG bisects that angle. So that can only mean that that's congruent to that. And it's telling me EMG, which is this angle right here that we already talked about, is congruent to AMN. So basically, by this given, we can determine that the three smaller angles are all congruent to each other. So that's what's very powerful about drawing on my picture again. Incredibly important. Alright, then definition of angle bisector. Alright, so definition of angle bisector. MG is the bisector of EMA. So EMA, we already labeled that EMG and GMA would be congruent. So angle EMG is congruent to angle GA. Excuse me. GMA. Alright. Now notice here that EMG is congruent to AMN. EMG is congruent to GMA. So GMA and AMN are congruent to the same thing, so they must be congruent to each other. So since GMA and AMN are congruent, that must mean that that's the bisector. And in fact, that's what we want to set out to prove, and that's true by definition of bisector. So that's the punchline right there. Cool beans. Alright, and then challenge, we got a proof and we got some numbers, so just kind of combining a lot of things. So again, all we're going to do is label our picture MHA, saying that that's 23 degrees, and it's saying AH bisects this whole thing, so it turns out that that's congruent. So, I mean, I can even go a step further. Well, that's 23 because they're congruent, and then the whole thing's going to be 46. So, drawing on this, it tells me to find the measure of MHT, which is what we already did by just drawing on it, labeling it, and then figuring out what we know. So basically, we just have to put our thought process down into words, all right? Which is actually a good life skill to have. Take your thoughts and use words to articulate your thoughts. It's not as easy as you would think. Sometimes you have feelings, but you don't really know how to say them. Sometimes you have opinions, but you don't know how to express them. Alright, that's what we're doing right now is these proofs. Very good life skills that we're learning right now. So given, says that since AH bisects angle MHT, that means that the two angles are going to be congruent. So I'm going to say angle MHA, we'll say equals. We'll keep it a little simple. MHA equals the measure of angle AHT, definition of angle bisector. So remember, we use buzzwords. I had an angle bisector. Remember, an angle bisector creates two congruent angles, not two congruent segments. Students like to confuse that all the time. Now, 3. Okay, I used buzzwords, but also look at the picture. I can add the two smaller angles together. I can say, well, measure of angle MHA plus the measure of angle AHT equals the whole thing MHT. And that's just the angle addition postulate. Not the segment addition postulate, the angle addition postulate. Because we're adding angles, not segments. Sometimes students will accidentally say segment addition postulate when that's not true. Next, realize that they equal each other, so I can substitute it in. Alright? When two things equal the same thing, when something equals something, I can substitute it in. So I'm going to get measure of MHA plus the measure of angle MHA equals the measure of angle MHT. And that was substitution. Now next, what do I know about MHA? I know that equals 23. So I'm just going to do a massive substitution. So remember, I can use my previous statements to help me determine the next ones. I know MHA is equal to 23, so I'm going to just double substitution it in. A lot of substitution going on. Okay? Now, I'm just going to do some simple combined like terms or simplification. I'm going to write 46 because that's 23 plus 23. So all I did was simplify. And then last, this is kind of a bonus step. Do we have to do this? Probably not, but let's just review it. Because we found the measure of MHT, but let's just swap the order and say since 46 equals the measure of MHT, I can say the measure of angle MHT equals 46 by symmetric. And that's when you swap the order. And that's it. That's the punchline. That was the challenge. Make sure we do this Canvas follow-up problems for fun. And have a good rest of your day.